Hello and welcome to Open House. I'm Sherry Willis. First up, signs that it's getting tougher for the average family to afford a first home. The National Association of Realtors says housing affordability declined in the third quarter. The group's Housing Affordability Index shows families purchasing homes had 128.6% of the income they needed to buy a median-priced home. Now, that may sound reassuring, but in reality, that figure was down from the past 3 years when families enjoyed a much bigger financial cushion. The hottest piece of property these days is located at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. That's right, the White House. And so on the eve of the presidential election, we're taking a look at the homes where past, present, and possible future leaders reside. Here to help us out, Paul Purcell. He's been here before. He's real estate broker and partner with Braddock & Purcell. Paul, welcome.
Thank you. A pleasure to be back.
So nice to have you here. And this topic, of course, couldn't be more current with the election happening tomorrow.
This is as timely as it gets, isn't it?
Let's start with the White House, though, because I think a lot of people out there sort of may have not been inside the White House. They wonder what it's like and what the Bushes are enjoying right now.
Well, the White House, I guess, if you wanted to put it this way, is sort of on the market tomorrow. And I think this is someone's chance, perhaps, to have a new home. But the White House itself has about 132 rooms. It has 28 fireplaces and 35 bathrooms in it.
No sharing with anybody if you got 35 bathrooms, right?
It's really obviously it's the people's home. It's open to the public. It is also for state events. It's wonderful, beautiful family quarters, which each president puts their own stamp on.
They have a bowling lane and a theater there.
Bowling lane. They have a theater. They have a jogging track. They have a swimming pool. They have a tennis court and the Rose Gardens.
Wow, that's not too bad, not too shabby. And I understand that Laura Bush is actually renovating the Lincoln bedroom right now. No idea what they're spending, but I think they're trying to bring it back to the era of Lincoln.
Right. That was actually Lincoln's office originally, and then it became the Lincoln bedroom some time ago.
All right, well, let's look at the Bush's other property, something they actually hold title to here, Prairie Chapel. We've seen it a lot on TV.
Yes.
What can you tell us about what's actually there?
You know, the Bushes are interesting. This is actually a rather simple and modest structure. They don't have big fancy digs. They have 1,600 acres, 1,600 Pennsylvania Avenue at 1,600 acres. It's in Crawford, Texas, which is just a few miles, 90 miles, I think, south of Austin, Texas, or north, rather, of Austin, Texas. Very beautiful West Texas countryside.
Rolling
hills and beautiful landscape, beautiful fields. He has a stocked bass pond on the property. But the house itself, as I said, it's rather modest. It's a low-slung structure made of Texas limestone, local limestone, and open, takes advantage of the breezes, which you need in West Texas, and takes advantage of the vistas and the views.
How much did they pay for that property?
The property itself was only about $1 million, and that's an example of location, location, location. I think you need Air Force One to get there, so it's not commuting distance. In
That's
other
really
words,
funny.
From anything.
You know what I was curious about? So if he were to sell that property today, would it be worth double the price? I mean, what happens to a presidential property once a president has actually lived in it?
There's a farmhouse on the property that they renovated, so they've made improvements to the land and to the structure on the property, and that's a great question. It's a $64,000 question. I think because it is in such a remote area that it's probably never going to command, for instance, say the Reagan's home in Bel Air, for instance. You know, when that goes on the market, I think that'll be a premium because it was Ronald and Nancy Reagan's home in the later years of their lives, and it's in an area like Bel Air, California.
Helps to have expensive property behind your own.
Exactly.
Let's talk about the challengers, John and Teresa Carey. They own a ton of property.
These two people could be no more different in their politics and in their real estate buying than they are. These are extremes. The Careys, interestingly, most of the property is owned by Teresa Heinz Carey rather than by John Carey. In fact, there's only one property that they share in common, which is their Beacon Hill property in Boston, Massachusetts.
You know, I'm very familiar with Beacon Hill. It's beautiful, just
stunning.
gorgeous. Yeah. And you feel like you've stepped into another era.
Yes.
Do they have a home that feels that way as well?
They do. They have a beautiful 5-story townhouse that's in prime Beacon Hill, and it was part of an original convent. So it's, you know, elevator, beautiful decorations, old world architecture. It's quite stunning.
How much?
Probably about $5 million, I think, on that property.
And we have $7 million here in our notes. Is that just price appreciation gone awry or what?
That's my mistake, actually.
It is 7.
It's
okay.
7. I'm sorry.
But they have a ton of other properties too, and I was surprised to see Fox Chapel, Pennsylvania.
That's probably the lowest value of the properties. And again, we go to location. That's outside of Pittsburgh, and that's where she actually raised her family with John Hines, her former husband. It is a 90-acre farm, I guess you'd call it.
Wow.
Beautiful, wonderful white Georgian farmhouse. There's also, I'm told, a big red, bright red barn that's used as studios and guest cottages and guest houses on the property as well. And that's probably also the lowest valued property, somewhere between $3 and $4 million of all of the properties they have.
What about Ketchum, Idaho? Now, this sounds really nice.
Well, this is, the lifestyles of the rich and famous. They have something there that they created. Apparently, Teresa brought over, with her former husband, a barn that was in England, and it was erected. It was brought over piece by piece. The barn was from 1485.
That's not inexpensive.
No, not inexpensive at all. The great room alone is 25 by about 60 feet with 25-foot ceilings. So an enormous, enormous structure.
Great place to entertain, probably.
Absolutely. Their Christmases and New Year's are spent there.
Beautiful, and it looks lovely, just tucked in. We just saw a picture of it. Yeah. Nantucket Harbor, $9 million.
That's their most expensive property. That is on the water in Nantucket Harbor, and it's a traditional Nantucket beach house. Well,
for some people.
For them, right?
Not for all of
us.
No,
not for all of us at all. And it's right on the water. It goes right down to the beach. It's a 5-bedroom structure. I'm told that it is absolutely.
So it's on the water.
It's on the. Oh yeah. Okay. When you get that price tag, you're on the water there, and it's very livable. And they've held a lot of Democratic fundraisers there, and it's been used for the campaign.
What about Georgetown, of course? You're a senator, you got to be in Washington.
You've got to, and that's their utilitarian house, if you will. If you can call 23 rooms utilitarian, it is a beautiful home, not too different and disparate from the Beacon Hill property, very much in keeping with the same style. It's a beautiful old structure. Again, the elevators, all of the bells and whistles, beautiful garden, and filled with Dutch masters. They have exquisite taste in art, and
very interesting. And exquisite taste in property, obviously.
$33 million in property.
Now, when you leave office, the world changes, it sounds like. Yes. The Clintons live in Chappaqua. There's been a ton of publicity about that house. Let's talk about this home in Westchester County.
Well, the Clintons, when they bought the home, if you remember, actually the news scuttlebutt was that they couldn't get a mortgage because they didn't have enough income. The Clintons had always lived in, it's true at that point.
That's amazing.
The Clintons had always lived in state housing. He was governor of Arkansas for so many years, and they really didn't have private residences. So when they bought this home, they had to depend upon the kindness of a friend by the name of Terry McAuliffe, who co-signed the note for them, and that was their way of getting the home. But the home is 5,200 square feet, built in the late 1800s. It's a gorgeous home at the end of a cul-de-sac, so very private. It passed Secret Service scrutiny when they bought it because of its privacy, rimmed by beautiful evergreens, and it's just a wonderful, again, what we would connote with Upper Westchester County in New York.
I'm going to put you on the spot here, Paul. Who's the best investor?
Well, Teresa.
All right, well, that answers your question right there. Paul Purcell from Braddock & Purcell, where he's partner. Thanks so much for joining us today.